Hello, my name is Dick Halley. I'm a former president of the International Listening Association, and for 5 years was its lead facilitator in their Certified Listening Professional program. I currently serve on the board at the Global Listening Center. I'm here today to share with you a few ideas about what you can do on a daily basis to improve your capacity to listen to someone and understand them more effectively. First of all, though, I really need to put some overarching imperatives in front of this. Nothing that I tell you today will be of any value at all unless you are able to feel compassion for the person you are listening to. That compassion is so imperative that you must learn to do it if you are not doing it already. The second idea is that you must want to understand the person you are listening to. If you don't really want to understand, there will not be the motive to hang in there and work hard at understanding. It takes a lot of work to develop these sometimes. At least you can catch yourself not being as compassionate as you might be and try to adjust in the middle of trying to listen to someone. And you can catch yourself losing focus and I'm not quite trying to be there to understand as much as I could be, and attempt to do that. Without these two things in place, you cannot really be ready to listen. So with that in mind, the first thing I want to do is to share my model of listening with you so that you can see how the things that I'm going to share today fit within the context of the listening process. So let me see if I can get that model up for you now. Okay, there's the model. It covers a lot of ground. I want to focus first on the middle part, talking about working memory. These are the variables that you're going to attempt to change how they work so that you can do a better job. So you collect an enormous amount of material, just constantly doing it, way too much to be aware of. So then there's a selecting process, and you select out those things, what you become aware of. This is heavily driven by probability. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The things that you select are then organized into something that you recognize or that seems to hold together for you. And when you have that, you attempt to assign meaning, come to a perception. This is affected by what was selected, how it was organized, and an enormous list of affecting variables, still essentially a mathematical probability. Other terms you might use would be biases, preconceptions, expectations. And then once you have that meaning assigned, there is an attempt to be sure of the meaning you've chosen, that we call checking fit. And once you've checked fit, then you go to facilitating behaviors. You're taking advantage of checking fit, and this is your attempt to help the speaker help you understand. Yours is your effort to make it possible, to make it easy for that speaker to get that his idea, her idea across to you. Then we have affecting variables. So what are these affecting variables? This is where those probabilities come from. So all that you've experienced, your values, your attitudes, your education, the vocabulary you've developed, the perspectives and paradigms that you developed, the religious positions, your political orientations, the memberships you have in groups, the ideas that you have about other groups, your group, religions and perspectives, memories and imaginations, the plans, your hopes and dreams, and I'm sure you can come up with a whole lot more than that. So that's a quick and dirty look at the model. Now, what can you do to affect your understanding by thinking about the pieces in this model? The first area that you can use is to limit what you collect. You can face the speaker. You can turn the TV and radio off. You know, if you're in a conversation and you're with someone and the TV's running and so forth, that is going to compete for their attention, your attention, and that's not going to work for you. Find a place with the fewest distractions you can. If you're with a child, try to get down on their level so that you are focused on that child and the child feels you're on their same level. You can also limit what you hear. Point your ears. I'm sure you know about the party effect. You know, you're at a party and you're having a conversation with someone and someone across the room says your name. It is amazing how many times you will notice that they said your name even though you're in a conversation with someone else. You can point your ears and listen to what that person says. So you want to make sure that whatever you have decided to listen to, you are focusing on pointing your ears toward that person. Close the windows. You know, I had a class in the summertime one time, and the windows were open and there was a lawnmower running outside. We couldn't hear anything, so we had to shut the windows down in order to be able to have the class go on. At a lecture, move away from a friend who's constantly commenting. Oh, my goodness, you know how that can interrupt what you find yourself paying attention to. If you're paying attention to that person talking, you're not paying attention to the speaker. So you can limit what you see, you can limit what you hear, and if you will do that, you will cut down on the number of things that you have to deal with. The second area that you can work at to attempt to affect your understanding is to work at changing the probabilities and expectations that you have for what somebody might say. So most importantly, get new experiences, different experiences. Go places you've never been before. This will change the probabilities because there are other options for what might happen in your mind. Explore your values and your attitudes. These are highly effective variables that have a lot of impact on your expectations for what somebody might mean when they say something. Read extensively in new areas. One of the things that this does is expand your vocabulary. If you don't have a meaning for the word that the person is using, it's very difficult to understand them. For example, you all know from your college experiences that you don't want to take an advanced class in chemical analysis if you've not had an introductory class in chemistry. That's where you learn the vocabulary. That's where you learn to be able to use the words that they're going to use when they have that advanced course. Learn about groups. Learn about the religions, the perspectives that are different from your own. This will expand your view of the world, expand the possibilities for what something might be meaning. Engage your imagination and learn to expand it. My goodness, this helps a great deal. Develop plans for your life. Be willing to dream and to hope. These kinds of things change the probability that is in your mind of what something might mean. So they open up possibility for you to have an understanding that is different than what you could have possibly had before. You need to continue to grow. You need to continue to have new experiences. You need to continue to explore your own life so that you have options for what somebody might need. And the third area that you're going to work on is to learn to keep your emotions in check. If you experience a significant emotion, then you're likely to have an emotion triggered while you're listening to someone. You need to be able to keep that in check. Otherwise, listening will not be optimal. You can't do it. I don't have a lot of time to talk about this, but you're going to have to spend some effort at it. Two sources that I find particularly useful: Help Yourself to Happiness by Maxie Maltby. It's Help Yourself to Happiness, Rational Self-Counseling. This provides a set of steps that you can go through to work on things that you know are going to trigger you. The other is the Heart Math Solution by Doc Childra. I find this an amazingly good resource. The processes that he talks about and how to get in control of your emotions. I would suggest that you get the original book. Probably a little bit better than the website, because the website is now run by other folks and they're trying to make money. But Doc Childra's book is just marvelous. It has a lot of research in it, explaining how he does the processes he's talking about and how they worked in the research that he's talking about. I highly encourage you to get a hold of that resource, and I will post citations for that at the end of this. Okay, the fourth area: learn to think in terms of checking fit. It is imperative that you understand that you cannot have the same meaning space in your mind as the speaker has. You don't have the same experiences. The probabilities aren't the same. There's no way that you will come to exactly the same meaning space as the other. It just cannot happen. You can get close because you've got social experiences together, and certainly with things like everyday kinds of things. Somebody asks you if you want a sandwich, yeah, you say yes or no, and you don't really need to think about that too terribly much. But when you're in a serious conversation, you need to think in terms of this person's meaning comes from their experience. I don't have their experience, and therefore I cannot possibly have exactly the same meaning that they do. So I've got to really work at figuring out whether I can come close or not. So let me share a little graphic with you. Okay, these are what I call Venn diagrams, the purple and the green spaces there. They're an attempt to represent the kinds of meaning that might be associated with a word or phrase. The one represents your meaning space for what the speaker says, and the other represents the speaker's meaning space, what they're saying. And so what we're looking for is whether or not there is any place where those two meaning spaces overlap. If they overlap a great deal, you increase the probability that you're going to at least be close to what that person is attempting to mean. However, you do not know what portion of the meaning space is available to the person they're actually paying attention to. You don't know whether or not you don't know what the overlap actually is. You can guess what it is given your social experiences and experiences with that person, but you won't really know. And so it's really imperative that you begin to think in terms of learning how to check fit. Okay. Ask yourself, How well does the meaning that you have assigned fit with what you've already heard? You might be missing part of that meaning. You might be adding meaning that isn't intended to be there. Do you have a clear idea of where that message is going? Now, that's a dangerous trap. If you do, it can help you to guess where that meaning is going, but you can also be trapped into going in the wrong direction. If you cannot think of alternative meanings, you've got some trouble. Okay, so be sure that you check that big meaning space that is in your own head, all that experience on it, to give you a chance to look for possible meanings. Let your imagination learn to grow and imagine what could possibly be going on in this person's mind. This is absolutely crucial. So then, what do we do next? What do we do with all this checking fit stuff? Well, one of the things I want you to do is to learn to work to be surprised. A good definition of whether or not you've listened well is whether or not there's any surprise in what you understand at the end of the listening situation. It could expand your view of the world. It could provide you with a new perspective or paradigm. You just cannot assume, though, that what you learn is going to be positive. It will possibly help you get common ground, but you might be disappointed in what you learn too. Hopefully, though, what you learn deepens the relationship, gives it a much richer feeling for what you're doing. So what do you do with this checking fit? Well, here we get to facilitating behaviors. You've got to help the speaker tell you what you want to understand in a way that you're going to get it. So if you have any doubt about what the speaker has in mind, then there's some things you can do to check. Let's look at just some simple ones. You can ask if you can paraphrase what that person is saying. And if that's okay, you can paraphrase it and see whether or not you're even in the ballpark with that person. You can ask the speaker to review what they've said so that you get another chance to hear their version of it. That can help you out. Check to be sure you're both using critical words the same. That's really crucial. We often talk past each other because we have different meanings for the words that are being used. I have in my book, Listening Models and Procedures, in chapter 8, a list of 13 different tactics to help you do this. And one of those tactics has 8 sub-tactics. I think it will be well worth your reading if you want to really learn how you can become a better person at figuring out, am I correct about what this person is trying to say? What can I do to get more accurate about what that person is saying? The other thing that is involved in the facilitating behaviors is if that speaker is having a very significant emotion, you've got to learn how to reflect that emotion in a way that they will feel that you're really trying to understand where they're coming from. In my book, Listening Models and Procedures, in chapter 7, I go through a process that helps you understand how you might best respond to someone given the level of intensity that the speaker is experiencing. And they talk about how you can figure out what that level of intensity is. You obviously are going to end up guessing, but if you are sincere in your attempt, most of the time my experience says the speaker will correct you if you guess wrong. Okay, so that's a short version of a series of things that you can actually do on a daily basis that you can continue to do throughout your life that will enhance the possibility that you will be able to more effectively understand what the person really means and come close to having what's in your mind be similar, hopefully very similar, to what that other person has in their mind. And that's what I mean by understanding more effectively. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to put up the bibliography pieces that I mentioned, the ones that I've mentioned here in this presentation. Take care. If there are any questions, if this is being used as a seminar of some kind, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. If it's not and you have questions, I am listing my email address on the slide that's going to come next. Okay? Take care.